Today, we're going to deconstruct one of the most powerful operating systems ever created. But not for a computer, for human mind. We're going to look at the success of Steve Jobs not as some series of lucky breaks or, unpredictable flashes of genius, but as something way more interesting. A repeatable, definable, and, often ruthless system. A system that was actually born from his greatest failure. In 1985, Steve Jobs was publicly fired from Apple, the company he built. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just losing a job. This was a deep public humiliation broadcast to the entire world. The visionary founder, the guy on stage, was just cast out from his own creation, the company that was his identity. Now, for most people, a defeat like that's the end of the story, a cautionary tale. But for Jobs, it was something else entirely. It was the beginning.
Because it didn't end his story at all. In fact, this moment, his greatest failure, is what immediately revealed his core system, a ruthless, unyielding obsession with perfection. You know, what a person does when they have nothing left to lose? That's the purest expression of who they really are. And what Jobs did next in the shadow of this massive defeat, it tells us everything we need to know about what truly drove him. It proved that for Steve Jobs, perfection wasn't some business strategy to impress shareholders. It was a non-negotiable personal code. It was his lifestyle.
So over the next few minutes, we're going to walk through this very system. We'll kick things off with that failure and see how it revealed his method. Then we'll trace the kind of surprising roots of his obsession. We'll define the moral imperative he felt for perfection, look at the visionary routines he used to enforce it, chart his incredible comeback, and finally, we'll distill the one lesson from his life that truly matters. All right, Section 1. A failure reveals a system. So let's start right there, in that moment of failure. When you strip away all the titles, the stock price, the public persona, what's left? What does a person build when they're building only for themselves? Well, for Jobs, the answer was the next computer, and it was proof that his obsession was never, ever just for show. So after getting fired, Jobs didn't just retreat into obscurity. He didn't write some tell-all book or become a venture capitalist, which is the typical path, right? Nope. Instead, he immediately poured his energy and $7 million of his own money into a new company, Next. And the mission was audacious. He was going to build the single most advanced computer the world had ever seen. The target wasn't everyday consumers, but the super demanding world of universities and scientific researchers. This wasn't just a new business. It was his technological and philosophical answer to the world that had just kicked him out. But here's what's truly fascinating. It's where he directed his obsessive energy. It wasn't on market share or sales projections, it was on the physical machine itself. Specifically, he became completely fixated on making the computer a perfect, seamless, mathematically pure cube. He drove his engineers to the brink over its magnesium casing, demanding a perfect 90-degree angle. The molds required for this were insanely expensive, and the manufacturing process was a total nightmare, with a really high failure rate. From a business perspective, this was madness. The detail was commercially irrelevant. It offered zero functional benefit. Most users would never even consciously notice it. So why did it matter so much to him? Because this singular focus proved that for Jobs, perfection wasn't a business goal, it was an uncompromising system of self-respect. He wasn't doing it for the customer, he wasn't doing it for the critics, he was doing it for himself. It was a defiant statement to the universe that even in his darkest professional moment, his internal standard of excellence would not be compromised, not by one fraction of a degree. This fixation on a completely unseen, unimportant detail, that is the key to understanding him. It's the moment his obsession was revealed not as some marketing tactic, but as the very core of his being. Section 2. The roots of obsession. Okay, so where does this uncompromising, almost spiritual devotion to aesthetics even come from? It certainly wasn't from a traditional business school. Nope. The answer lies in a very unconventional set of influences that shaped his mind long before he ever built a computer. His path was anything but traditional. He famously dropped out of Reed College after just one semester, feeling like it was an unfair financial burden on his working-class parents. But he didn't leave. He actually stayed on campus, sleeping on floors, just auditing the classes that truly interested him. And because he was no longer bound by required courses, he was free to explore his curiosity. He wandered into a calligraphy course, a decision that seemed completely impractical at the time. This artistic detour was later followed by a profound spiritual journey to India, where he immersed himself in the principles of Zen Buddhism. Now, these weren't just youthful wanderings, they became the foundational pillars of his entire design philosophy. Calligraphy gave him a deep, visceral appreciation for typography, for the artistry and the spacing between letters, for the beauty of form itself. It is the direct reason the Macintosh was the first personal computer with beautiful fonts. And from Zen Buddhism, he learned the profound value of simplicity, not just as an aesthetic, but as a discipline, the power of subtraction. The core belief he forged from these two totally different influences was this: to find the true essence of something, you have to ruthlessly eliminate everything that is inessential.
And this just crystallizes his core belief. Purity of design reflects purity of intent. The most famous example of this is his insistence that the internal circuit boards of the original Macintosh be laid out beautifully. The engineers protested. No customer would ever see them. But Jobs was adamant. He believed that if the inside was a chaotic, compromised mess, then the intent behind the product was flawed, and that flaw, that lack of care, would eventually show itself on the outside. For him, great design wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a moral one. Section 3. Perfection's moral imperative. So this moral belief system wasn't just some abstract idea. It evolved into a concrete, operational philosophy. And we can really distill it down to 3 core pillars that form the foundation of the obsession system. The first pillar was what he called the insanely great standard. This wasn't just a marketing slogan, it was a brutally effective internal benchmark, a non-negotiable, often seemingly impossible standard of quality. When the team was developing the first iPhone, for example, he wasn't satisfied with the prototype's plastic screen, which scratched easily. He demanded they find a way to use unscratchable glass, a material that didn't even exist for phones at the time. His standard forced the team to completely reject good enough and literally invent a new solution, leading to the creation of Gorilla Glass. It was a tool to break through mental and material barriers. The second pillar is maybe the most crucial, and definitely the most difficult: the power of no. Jobs famously said that people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are out there. When he returned to a failing Apple in 1997, the company was making dozens of different products, multiple versions of the Mac, printers, scanners, you name it. In a legendary meeting, he walks to a whiteboard, draws a simple 2x2 grid labeled Consumer and Pro on one side, and Desktop and Portable on the other. He declared Apple would only make 4 products, and he said no to everything else, killing off 70% of the product line. This ruthless practice of subtraction, that's what allows for true focus on greatness. And the third pillar, the one that ties it all together, was end-to-end control. To make sure the purity of his vision was never diluted or compromised by outsiders, Jobs insisted on controlling every single aspect of the user's experience. He controlled the hardware, the software that ran on it, the marketing that sold it, and famously, even the theatrical experience of just opening the box. This philosophy is the very reason Apple stores exist. In the early 2000s, his board thought retail was suicide, but Jobs knew he couldn't trust some big box retailer to present his products with the right reverence and expertise. He had to control the entire journey, from factory to fingertip, to guarantee the integrity of his vision. Section 4. The routines of a visionary. Okay, so a powerful philosophy is one thing, but how do you actually translate that into daily practice? How do you implement it when deadlines are looming and compromises are so tempting? Well, Jobs translated his pillars into concrete, actionable routines that enforced his system relentlessly. One of his key tools was a process you could call the Design Simplicity Protocol. So designers would present a range of initial concepts to him. He would act as this ruthless human filter, immediately and often brutally rejecting anything that felt cluttered or derivative or compromised. Then he'd force the team to distill their work down and then down again until only 3 options remained. This whole process wasn't really about giving him a choice. It was a forced march of elimination. It systematically stripped away complexity and basically cornered the team into finding the most elegant, focused, and minimalist solution possible. Now contrast that very structured design process with his famously unstructured meeting style. The standard corporate boardroom, it's often a theater of posturing and distraction, right? You've got polished tables, PowerPoints, formal seating. It all creates distance and hierarchy. Jobs rejected this completely. His preferred venue for important one-on-one conversations wasn't a boardroom. It was a long, meandering walk around the leafy streets of Palo Alto. This simple act of walking just stripped away all the pretense. There were no phones, no slides, no assistants. It fostered intense focus, direct candor, and a sense of a shared journey. There is simply nowhere to hide on a walk.
And the crucial point here is that his walking meetings weren't just some personal quirk or a way to get exercise. They were a deliberate system, a system designed to accelerate feedback, to get to the unvarnished truth faster, and to eliminate flawed concepts before they could even take root in the organization. By removing the physical and psychological refuge of a conference room, the table to lean on, the screen to look at, he forced a level of raw intensity and intellectual honesty that just couldn't happen otherwise.
Section 5. The ultimate comeback. And so we come full circle. All of this, the philosophy forged in the wilderness of failure, the 3 pillars of his obsession system, the daily routines that enforced it, all of it culminated in what is almost certainly the single greatest comeback in modern business history. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company he had co-founded was reportedly just 90 days from bankruptcy. It was a chaotic mess with a bloated product line and zero clear direction. He wasn't just returning as some sentimental founder. He was returning as a leader with a fully formed, battle-tested system that he had honed during his years at Next and Pixar. He immediately began applying it at scale, cutting products, simplifying the message, and refocusing the entire company's soul on one simple mission, making a few insanely great things. And the result? Well, from his return in '97 to his passing in 2011, a period of just 14 years, Apple's stock value grew by over 9,000%. This wasn't just a corporate recovery, it was a world-changing event. It was the birth of the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. It was a testament to the staggering commercial power of an uncompromising vision. It was the ultimate, undeniable validation of the obsession system. And the system's legacy extends far beyond Apple's headquarters. He institutionalized design thinking, elevating it from some niche department to the central driving force of corporate strategy for countless companies. He proved definitively that millions of customers will happily pay a premium, not just for a product's features, but for a superior, seamless, integrated experience. And most importantly, he cemented the idea that the purity and clarity of a company's vision is its single greatest and most defensible asset in a crowded marketplace. Section 6. The only moat that matters. So what is the final takeaway from this lifetime of obsession? What is the universal lesson we can actually apply from his remarkable system? The ultimate lesson of the system is this: compromise is poison. In a world that is constantly pushing us toward good enough, toward adding one more feature, toward appeasing one more committee, the only way to create something truly revolutionary is to declare an internal war on compromise. And this means ruthlessly practicing subtraction. It means having the courage to say no, not to the bad ideas, but to the good ones, so that you have the bandwidth to fully execute on the one insanely great idea. In the end, Steve Jobs built a legendary career and transformed not one, but 3 different industries: computers, music, and mobile phones, on one simple, uncompromising truth: that design reflects intent. The obsession system was his tool for turning that single, intense vision into a global phenomenon. And it leaves us with a final, powerful idea. Features can be copied, prices can be matched, business models can be replicated, but an unwavering, obsessive, deeply personal commitment to perfection, that is the only moat that truly matters.